What's up? I'm Dr. J, and welcome to Don't Be Scared the podcast. Now, on today's episode, I had a chance to interview Dr. Carol Taylor. Now, I met Dr. Taylor at LSU in graduate school. Shout out to the Tigers, you know what I'm saying? We killing them this year, hopefully. You know what I'm saying? Keep it going. But, while I was out there in graduate school, I met Dr. Taylor, and she was our acting chair at the time. She was a great, wonderful person. She was definitely trying to switch it up in her role as chair, and the students and everybody there saw it. So it was a pleasure, to really sit down and talk to her during this episode. Um, so if you are interested in academia at all, this is your episode because we had a chance to just go over her life as a professor, right? To talk about what she does on a day to day, but as well talk about her role as chair when she was over the chemistry department. Now she's retired, and we even get a chance to dive into that life as well. So if you're interested into academia, if you want to pursue that career path, this is your episode. All right, let's get into the episode. For those who do not know, um, Dr. Taylor, how can you describe yourself to somebody right now, as far as just a quick introduction of yourself?
I'm a New Zealander. I'm an organic chemist. I spent 35 years doing chemistry, and a couple of years I did a very brave thing. I retired early and moved home to New Zealand, where I'm pretending to be a farmer.
Oh wow, okay. I did not know the farmer you was doing that right now. How's
Oh,
that
yeah.
been?
Well, it's great. I mean, this is the land where my parents and my grandparents were. So in fact, I looked up a word for you. The New Zealand native people, the Maori, call it the tangata whenua. And it's hard to explain what that means, but I looked it up. It means the people and the land and the connection between them.
Hmm.
So I'm close to my tangata whenua, is what they would say. And that's how I
Wow,
feel. Yeah. Close to my
that's so
people, my land. Yeah.
wow. So okay, so let's just start off with where you were born, right? So you're over in a totally different country. I guess I'm curious because I'm assuming there's a culture difference between
Oh
America,
yeah.
right,
Oh yeah.
and where you are now. Just can you just explain some of the differences that you've seen overall?
I was born in a small town called Pukekohe, which is another Maori word. It means hill of the Koikoe bush.
Mm,
Um, and it's a rural area, at least it was. It's changed a lot since I was a kid. Something I'm very proud of, and that I was forced to tell people a few times during my years in the US. New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the right to vote. And
oh,
so I consider myself a human being, a scientist, a daughter, a sister, all of those things before I would say I'm a woman, because it really didn't matter growing up here. I felt like we were on very equal footing.
mm,
And I've just finished reading a book. I read all sorts of stuff, but our race relations here are better than most places. But again, there's stuff there that the history books don't tell you about, at
yeah.
least not at this stage, right? But it feels like a much more equitable and naturally diverse place than the US. There's quirky little language differences. Um, I was talking to a neighbor the other day, and I told him I was going to plant more trees in the fall, and he just looked at me and laughed because, of course, it's autumn. There's all sorts of little differences, and I guess all the years I spent in the States, it's hard to be 8,000 miles from home, where you grew
Hmm.
up, where your family is, where people understand you. Yeah, I think that's that's the differences that I can think of. It's not home, right? Your
Yeah, yeah,
people,
of course.
yeah.
And then I guess so you grew up there, and then over time, um, how did you ultimately decide to go from there and then go those 8,000 miles across the sea to the United States? What made you ultimately decide to come over here?
We've only got 40 minutes, right? Well, back in the summer of 1986, 87, because summer is December, January, February here, I had an undergraduate research experience, right? And I know that's key to a lot of people's careers, but it was a really, really unusual thing back in those days. And I worked with an American professor, a guy called Harold Hine from Bucknell University in Pennsylvania. And he invited me to come back to the States to spend a summer at Bucknell. And I did. And a lot of the rest of it's history. You know, I went to the University of Pennsylvania and did my doctorate. I came back to New Zealand for 12 years, from the mid-90s until 2006. And then I guess I felt, and again, you can look back on things and think you'd have done things differently, but, you know, you do what you think's right at the time. And you don't regret it if you know that it was the right thing to do at the time. I felt scientifically frustrated in New Zealand. It is a small country, right? And, you know, and so the incestuousness of science and review processes and, you know, it's just a very small community. And I guess I missed the larger scale experience that I'd had in the States as a grad student and a postdoc. So I went back for a sabbatical at the end of 2005, and really I found the job at LSU, and you know, another chapter of history opened up.
Yeah, yeah. And okay. And all right, so definitely you got your start in grad school up east, and then you went a couple of different places. What I guess over time, did you looking back, right, in your career, did you enjoy graduate school? Because I'm still fresh. I'm still fresh. I just graduated, 3 years. So I'm just curious on your take on it. Did you overall enjoy your experience while you were in graduate school?
You know that they're going to be war stories for life, right? The hard work and the dedication. But I don't know whether you can see this already. That's 35 years ago for me, right? And some of my best friends come from that time. You know, we worked really hard together. We fought battles. You know, we were united against our boss. Um, they were tough times, but they were you do get past and see them as very character building, and they make you who you go forward into your career as. So there were things we enjoyed about it, but it was hard work. That's what grad school is, right? And it's about learning to be a scientist and your own way of doing it and figuring out what you want to do next. So enjoys yeah, it gets better with the rose tinted glasses. I have a very good friend who used to say Philadelphia is going to look good in the rear vision mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and with that, in being in graduate school, I guess what was if you could remember, what was a moment that you distinctly remembered that kind of impacted your take on moving forward, right? What do you remember a key time that decided, okay, this is what I want my career to look like, or what was that moment for you?
No, I don't particularly have a turning point. I guess what I slowly realized was that I'd come too far to do anything else than be a professor in my own mind. I'd seen what you could do. I have always, I think I'm a natural born teacher.
Hmm.
I told my cousin a few days that I think I finally got over that. I used to round up my siblings and my cousins and teach them on Sundays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so they were reminding me of that, but that's okay. I like teaching. I like research. I'm always, I think, looking for the next challenge, and being a professor, there's always something new, right? It just felt like I would be doing less than I was capable of if I didn't follow that career path as a faculty member, I'd probably always have regrets.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was more of a slow creeping up on me that there was really nothing else I could do. One of my PhD advisors used to say, "It's the only game in town."
Oh
Yeah,
wow, yeah. So
yeah.
and this is like it's like a so many things that we could do once we're finished, but it's like we always hear the two things, industry or academia.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I guess I'm wondering, okay, so you always feel like the a natural born teacher. Is that ultimately the main thing that made you want to pursue that? Or was it a take to where it's like you wasn't interested in industry at all, if that makes sense?
Well, more coincidences. I had a boyfriend at the time who was a New Zealander in Philadelphia, right? And he had a job in industry. And, so I knew him and a lot of his friends, and they had a good life and they earned good money and stuff. Maybe also my other PhD advisor said to me once, and I think it's part of the freedom of being able to follow your own research ideas rather than in industry you're following what the company needs you to do, and your project can just be axed, right, if it's not going in the right direction or it's not economically feasible. And
Mm-hmm.
you look back and you think, well, academia is not a whole lot different, right? If you don't get the grant, it's hard to do the work. um, but I think it was the idea of freedom to be able to explore your own ideas on some level. And one of my PhD advisors, who Ralph Hirschman, had a long career in industry at Merck before he became a professor. So he really knew both sides of the coin, and I think he helped me realize that that he thinks that I was more of a professor than an industrial chemist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a good
Yeah.
mentor.
No,
Yeah.
no, and I'm glad that you bring in the mentors up, because they can be so impactful, navigating in our career space as far as where we're trying to go. And you mentioned a couple mentors. What do you have anything as far as as you were being mentored by these people, did that impact you when you became a professor? Right? Did you have a need to become a mentor, or did that naturally happen? How was that for you? When
I
in that.
think mentoring is a very organic thing, right? When new professors would start at LSU, we would assign them a mentoring committee. But I think the best mentoring relationships are something that happens spontaneously, that aren't assigned. You find people that you can relate to who are a few steps ahead of you in their career, and you talk to them, and it's good when organizations have a formal structure to keep an eye on you and to help you out, but you should never restrict your mentors to those people who have been chosen for you. There's other good people out there that you can talk to, and sometimes those mentors aren't the best people. But I always felt like no one else has my personality, right? I'm going to take the things from different people that I've worked with and for along the way, but I've got to do this in a way that's true to me and my personality. And
Mhm.
but certainly there were times when you would be faced with a difficult situation and you would think, now how would Ralph, for example, handle this, right? What would he
Yes.
do if he was still here and I could call him? What would he say? Um, and then you reach a point too where you don't actually have to call that person because you know what they would say, and you're gradually becoming more confident in yourself.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right with that confidence piece. Because I feel like over time, even with myself, there's times where it just takes me a while to get comfortable at to actually have that confidence.
Mm.
When you were okay, so after you graduated and your first couple years as a professor, so you graduated, then you went back to New Zealand, right?
Then I did a postdoc at Princeton for about 15 months. Yeah.
15 months. Okay. And then after that, you're back home. And then what was those first couple years like? Um, what did you experience, those first couple years compared to after your time there? What did you notice about those first couple of years?
Well, it was the department where I'd been an undergraduate, right, at the University
Okay.
of Auckland. I had been an undergraduate and a master's student there not that long ago, 7 years ago, earlier,
Okay.
right? And so I still felt like a lot of my colleagues still treated me like a student. I
Mm.
felt like a naughty little girl at faculty meetings. And the other thing, I think you also feel like your grad students aren't that much younger than you, right? And so it's, you have a lot in common with them. You want to be their friend, but you also kind of have to be the boss. So I think when you're younger, you struggle more with that. But in terms of confidence, I think that's what gives it to you on some level, is because you have these people who are younger than you or less experienced with you, and they're seeking advice from you. What are you going to do? Run away? Right?
Yeah.
You've got to develop some confidence to try and help other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're exactly right because once you have that confidence, then you feel comfortable to actually explain that. And how was that? Because I'm curious as far as your time. Because when I met you at LSU, and then I saw that department with those professors. Was as being a woman during that time, what have you noticed over just over the years, right? As far as representation goes, because those first couple of years, were you the only woman in your department, or were there multiple women there?
No, there were multiple women there, right down from, in New Zealand we call it a lecturer. It's like an assistant professor, right?
Yeah.
There was even a very senior female full professor who was a good mentor to me. And that comes back again to there being, it wasn't 50-50, right? But just coming back to New Zealand being a more gender equity, it's a bit more balanced. And at LSU, there were a decent number of us, 7 and 35. Um,
Hmm.
and again, we went through the ranks, from new people right up to, very senior people. Um, but did I see a change over the years? Yes, I think so. I mean, maybe when I started, I became a, a faculty member in 1995, and so that you had to be fairly confident and assertive to do that back in those days, I think. Whereas I think a lot more people see it within their grasp, and there's better support mechanisms now. Young people may think that they're struggling, but I think things have got better. Things have got
Hmm.
better. It used to be much more sink or swim.
Oh man, and that so I'm glad to hear that too, because we only know what we know during
Yeah.
our time. Uh, and you mentioned that sink or swim moment. What was a time where you felt like you were, sinking, but something that you had to realize you had to do, right, to get out that situation? Did you have a experience during your time?
Most days there's little experiences like that, right? One of the things I was going to say, if you want a career where you know what you're going to do every day and you like routines, being a researcher or a professor is not one of them, right? Um, Certainly, well, when you knew me, I was chair of the department, right? And I think that was a big thing for me to do. I did it because I felt like I knew too much not to. I
Mm,
cared about the young people that I'd helped encourage to join the department. I cared about the students. I felt like I could make a difference. But whether I was going to be able to do that or not, it was tough. It was daunting, and there were some experiences and challenges in that time that I will never be allowed to talk about.
no, I totally get it. I totally understand.
Yeah, and it's like all you can do is do the best you can at the time to do what's right for everyone, and yeah, there's big challenges.
Yeah. What are some strategies that or even coping mechanisms that you have to, get through those times? Because as you said, it's a different day always, and especially when you got into your chair position, now you have to balance all these personalities and everything like
Mhm.
that. How did you get through it?
I think a sense of humor is important.
mm,
Um, I was a faculty member in three different departments over the years, and I like to say that it's like a Shakespearean play. It's the same parts but different actors. And I
mm,
used to say we're not sure whether it's a comedy or a tragedy yet, right? So, I mean, a sense of humor, having some good people around you within that organization or department that you can count on to talk things through with, to rely on to share some of the burden. And try not to rush into, don't let people push you into making decisions quickly.
mm,
Um, so sometimes you just got to make a snap decision and you can't consult widely. But whenever you can, try to insist on some time to reflect, do a bit of homework, and make the best informed decision that you can.
yeah.
Don't procrastinate, but just um, don't react impulsively, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. Um, and no, yeah, because you don't want to make decisions that could harm you later on, right? Um,
Or other people, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
some faculty member might come to you and say, I really need more lab space. I need this, I need that. And because they're putting pressure on you, you might give in. But then you have to sit back. You need to look at what the allocations are, where you might be able to catch some space. Would it be fair to other people? Are you going against the bylaws and doing something exceptional to help this person?
hmm
You can't be pressured or intimidated into doing something that isn't going to be equitable or fair to everybody.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
And did so when it came to equity, as far as just in general when it comes to I guess I'm trying to ask what what did you experience in your time in your different roles as far as did you feel like there was enough equity for everyone to have or was there times where you felt like um one person kind of had all the power or something it could because usually people have that idea to where depending on funding or something like that they think that this person has more power or something like that is that the case or is this just something us graduate students at that time really wasn't sure about.
Oh no, it's real. And I guess that's something I see a lot of people might see being chair of the department as a power thing. For me, it was a huge responsibility, right? It's not about using your power to advance some of your agendas. It's about trying to address some long-standing problems, do some good things, and try to get some equity. But it isn't always that. And the chair often doesn't have a lot of power because I once saw a triangle. You've got the students, you've got the faculty, and then you've got your boss, the dean, and the people above them, right? You're trying to please everybody. So it's difficult. But yeah, and like you say, people who think they've got all the grants who should decide what's going on. Actually, here's a funny moment that I just remembered. You get these people who beat their chests about being, one of the big breadwinners in the department. Well, I got this annual report, and you know what? The top five breadwinners were five women. So I shared the statistics with everybody. I said, yeah, it was a good moment
And
because
and
we women don't typically walk around beating their chest. They think, oh, thank goodness I've got the next grant. I can support my students for a few more years and go and get on with it, right? Yeah.
no, Yeah, that would have. I'm pretty sure that threw that person off then when you gave that stat. And so when it comes to your graduate students that you had, um, how were you like implementing or even developing them, right, to have that same type of mindset that you had as a chair, wanting everybody to succeed?
To be honest, I think like attracts like, right? I didn't have a whole lot of students throughout my career actually because I'm a crazy woman who works too hard, right? You're not gonna have a relaxed life in the Taylor Research Group. So I think I got people who were up for that. And I think just generally too, there tends, not always, but there's usually some element of a personality match, right? Um, and you work together, you establish how things are done in the lab after the
Hmm.
solvents, and we, you set that up as a, not like a department, but people have responsibilities, they have to give back. The involuntary kleptomaniac who steals everybody's clean glassware needs to be dealt with. You just everyone's fair and equal, but we can't take any crap from anybody either.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess I wonder too, uh do you believe that it's important? How involved should I guess I'm trying to wonder from your experience being a someone who was over many, in this case your students, how important do you think it is to actually develop not only whatever science that they're in, because that's what we're here to do, right, in that
Mm.
case, but outside of that, those other skills, do you think it's important to develop those other skills, or the
Well,
soft skills that they don't talk about per se?
absolutely. It's a package deal, right? You can be a very good scientist, but you also, on the other side of the coin, you can't be a good scientist by putting together a flashy PowerPoint presentation, right? There's, like you said, there's no substitute for the science and the research, the results. But being able to present it, being able to work well with other people in a team, um, I think younger faculty are more aware of that, and perhaps, but it's a generalization. Um, I one of the things I had written down that I wanted to say is try to be a good person as well as a good scientist, right?
Yeah.
Um, and teaching those skills, whether they be preparing a professional research presentation, being able to write a paper, being able to go out into the community and do chem demos with little kids. It's you should be doing all of those things if you're a good scientist, not just sitting in the lab.
Hmm.
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you mentioned that with the chem demos. That's definitely one of my things I like.
Mm-hmm. You
Do you
probably didn't
think?
have a choice.
No, I didn't have that much choice.
No, it was a great thing that George set up many years ago. It really is. Yeah.
And do you think that it's important to show that outreach to many students? Because I think that sometimes as scientists we get wrapped up in our world and we forget to tell people about what we're doing, or even try to bring them in.
Mhm.
Do you think that's important? And during your time, do you think we're still doing enough?
We can always do more, I think, is the answer, right? But it's so important. You're worried about what's going on at work. Before you were at LSU, I was the faculty advisor to the student affiliates of the American Chemical Society. And we used to go downtown for Earth Day once a year in March or April sometime and have a big tent and do chem demos. It was chaotic trying to work with these undergraduates and get liquid nitrogen down to the old state capitol and stuff. But you know what? You get out there and you're talking to the kids and the parents, and you realize how much fun science is, right?
Yeah.
And how much your average person is interested. There's a wow factor, and it is fun as well as hard work, and being at the cutting edge of research. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely agree with you because you could see in the faces of the young children who you think would have never liked science, but then you show them one thing, and then next thing you know, they want to become a scientist. It can be definitely satisfying and inspirational.
Hmm.
Um, and then I guess growing up, did you always know that you were going to be in science, or was this something that just kind of happened later on in life?
Um, I in my notes I made, I said I don't think the term STEM had been invented when I was a kid. And to be honest, I've figured this out relatively recently, like in about the last 10 years. I think I learned to be a scientist following my dad around the farm. You know,
Mm,
whether it's a broken water pipe or an animal with a medical problem, it's about being confronted something and using everything you've got to try to address it and fix it. Um and so yeah, I think and so but a bit like becoming a professor, it was just something that gradually solidified for me. I liked science and chemistry in particular. I was pretty good at it. I had some good teachers along the way. If Mr. Cluett ever watches this, he was a great high school teacher. You hear that so often, right? But it's true. We had no lab equipment to do experiments, but he still, inspired us. And we had a lot of fun, and he made it challenging and interesting. When we went to college, my friend, I was lab partners with someone from the same school as me, which was pretty stupid because neither of us knew we knew what a beaker was, but not much more than that, right? But we were smart. We just watched everyone else, and we did okay. Um, so it was just gradually taking it one step at a time, realizing that it was chemistry, realizing more specifically that it was organic chemistry,
mm,
realizing that it was the combination of the intellect and the practical work, being in a lab and working and solving problems. It's like being a professor. It just sort of snuck up on me. There wasn't an aha moment. You sort of realized all of this, you know, oh, well, I
mm.
guess this is who I am and this is what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
wouldn't do anything else. Yeah.
yeah. You could say that you found your purpose, right?
Yeah.
And you were able to because when I feel like when you find your purpose, life just seems different. It doesn't seem the thing that seems hard isn't really hard because you want to do that
To
type
do
of
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I had written in my notes, don't expect to be thanked or to earn lots of money for doing something that you think is important and that you enjoy. You just got to do it, right?
Mm, yeah. No, yeah. It's a God. I like how you said a God because usually you want to do something or you need to do something, but at the end of the day, there's things that you just got to do regardless.
You may
Um,
not even enjoy some of them, but you know it's got to be done and it's the right thing to do, and you're someone who can do it. So you just got to get on with it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious. I like to ask this question as far as here at Don't Be Scared, we're always trying to preach being brave. What is one moment in your life or career that you remember you just had to have that courage to get through that moment? Did you have a specific moment that you could think of?
Well, I had thought it was when I decided I was going to be chair of the department. But then this morning I was thinking, I think there is a bigger moment for me deciding to retire early, right?
Mm,
Because we're always striving to achieve more, the next grant, the next paper, the next project, the next whatever. And to say, you know what? I think I've done enough of this, and there are other things that are important to me in life,
Mm.
about going home to New Zealand, about being with my dad as he got older. Um, it's okay to say I've had enough of this, or I want to change, you know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was the biggest thing, because, you know, why would someone who probably should have kept at it for at least 10 more years, is that a failure? You know,
And
what are people going to think? And I have actually asked some younger people who, bizarrely enough, come to me to advice sometimes, and I've said, you know, I feel like I'm letting the side down. No, no, said someone, it's, you're saying it's okay to stop.
mm,
You know,
and
it's a brave thing to do, but it's also showing that you don't have to go to the grave sitting in your office, right? You
yeah,
can get out
yeah.
reasonably early and do other things that are important to you in life. So
I'm glad that you brought that up. With the retiring early being the most courageous moment. Um, what what is it about academia that has that pressure on professors to feel like they have to continue this type of extensive output of work over a long period of time, right? Because you know, you and even my advisor, you guys are kind of different from everybody else, retiring early in that sense. Even though
are you going to
is
say we're
it
alike?
so it
We're
is
very different.
so I'm just curious, like, what is it about the culture of that? What, because I'm still learning and I'm seeing it now, but I'm curious from your experience.
It's about loving the science and the research and always wanting to do the next thing. I think that's a big driver for a lot of people. And it's also, it's not the kind of job where you can just give 2 weeks notice, right? You have commitments to grad students who are in the program. You this it's hard to find a perfect time to get out, you know. And there's, I think, I have reflected in the last few years, I think there's a certain personality, a certain ego that comes with the job, which I don't particularly think I have. I, but most people are always wanting to do more, wanting more recognitions, publishing more papers. It's kind of an insatiable um, pursuit, I think.
Mm,
Um, Certainly for me, the things that made things, and I thought I was like that when I was younger, but I think I had breast cancer in my mid-40s. I lost my mother relatively young, and I was a long way from home. So I certainly had a few reality checks that, sitting in my office, I didn't want to do that until the day I died. You know, I
hmm.
needed to get home. I had other things to do with myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's self-perpetuating, and I do understand it. I think that was me for a long time.
Hmm. Hmm. And then those instances in life makes you reflect on it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, and
The next paper isn't the most important thing.
no, yeah, yeah, no, you're definitely right. It's definitely a lot of important things out there, especially depending on what we value as important. Um,
Yes.
and so I guess I'm curious now that you're retired, what is life like now?
Well, it's also, don't expect every day to be the same and have a routine, right?
Okay.
I get up. I often do a lot of stuff on the computer before it gets daylight. I've always been an early bird. Um, and I am Professor Emerita at LSU, which means I have library access, I have Zoom access. And
Mm,
I still do some professional things. Like, obviously, I still write letters for former students and keep in touch with all of them. That's not work, that's become friendship at this point, right?
mhm.
But certainly, I do write letters for people. I did an assessment for a promotion at another institution recently. I sometimes review papers, so I do still do a little bit of chemistry. And sometimes I have to say I enjoy it. It's like, oh yeah, this is cool. I remember this.
Yeah.
Then as soon as it is daylight, I get up and check on my cows. They're obviously, well, I would say they're like my students. I need to make sure they're all okay. But what I have also told people is that they're often smarter and nicer than managing faculty. So I check up my cows. I've been doing a lot of the Nakaroa stream flows through our place, and I'm trying to do, it's called riparian planting, fencing it off and planting native tree species and trying to get it back to how it was once upon a time.
Mm.
So that's a big new passion, and it's science, right? It's more botany than chemistry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'm also the organic chemistry farmer I have, as well as my 3 degrees in chemistry, I have a grow safe certificate. That means I'm allowed to buy all kinds of herbicides and sprays, and
Oh,
um,
wow.
all the neighbors think it's hilarious. I wander around with little spray cans, selectively spraying weeds, but it's really, I can see a difference in the pasture. So I do that. I also, I help other elderly. I don't have parents to look after anymore, unfortunately, but I do take care of some aunts and other family friends, take them to hospital appointments, make them some muffins, go and visit them and have a chat. So, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
spend a day or two a week helping other people. I have this house was built in 1894. And as I say, there's been 3 generations of tailors here. So let's just say there's a lot of stuff to sort through too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not as much fun as planting flax bushes and trees and things, but slowly, slowly. So yeah, those are the kinds of things I do.
No, and that sounds great. This sounds like you are enjoying life, and I'd love to hear that.
Yep,
Um,
it's good.
and,
I wish my dad was still here. It would be more fun doing it with him. But
mhm.
my kind of, you had asked what are your aspirations? When I go, I would like to leave this place as a museum and a park.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a lifetime commitment. And my sisters and my aunts think I'm crazy, but that's okay. It's giving me a sense of purpose at the moment. And you know me, it will probably happen.
Yeah, no, it will happen.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and no, that's great to hear. I really am excited for everything. So one before we end it, um, is there any type of advice that you would give to a young professional trying to get into your career? The what type of advice could you give them a little nugget about?
What's that? They're sort of things we've touched on along the way, I think. Believe in yourself, do what you're passionate about, um, be good to other people, do what you know is right, do what you enjoy. Well, you have to do some other stuff along the way, right, to be sure. Have confidence, don't be afraid. Sometimes you've just got to stand up and do stuff, or, you're always wondering about the next step in your career. And should I stand up and be head of department? And, I was actually interim associate dean for a while before that delayed my early retirement too. But, don't be afraid to stand up and do stuff when you're asked. It can feel daunting, but you've been asked for a reason. And yeah, don't be afraid, I guess would be the advice. Have faith in yourself. Do it not just for yourself, but those around you, and enjoy the science, because that's advice I used to give to incoming grad students. You've got to pick an advisor and a project that's going to get you out of bed every morning. When the science isn't going well, when every experiment seems to fail, you've got to really believe in what you're doing to get out of bed and set up the next experiment. So
Mm.
have faith, work hard, and try to be a good person along the way. it isn't always a recipe for success, but I think it leads to a happy scientist,
Mm, mm,
um, rather than someone who's miserable and always striving for more.
yeah, yeah,
It's not
yes,
just about the science, it's about the students and the younger faculty members that you help, and, you know, as you say, trying to enable other people to make contributions too.
yeah, yeah. Man, I love it. I love it. That was great. That was great because I think especially that piece of just enjoying what you do. Because that's what's ultimately going to help you get out of bed every single day. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Not to
no, so
mention cows looking for food. Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so thank you once again. Thank you to Dr. Taylor, Carol Taylor. Thank you for being on our podcast. And once again, this is our Don't Be Scared podcast.
My
And
pleasure, and it's good to see you doing well, RJ.
thank you.